Hello, hello. Hi, Donna. Hi, Loretta. Hi, Virginia. Hey, Linda.
Ooh.
Hi, friends. Gail and Fran. Hi, Cheryl. Coming in from South Carolina. Welcome, friends. Welcome, friends. So nice to see all of you and more of you joining every minute here. So I'm going to continue for a minute letting people in,
Cool.
and then we are going to get started. And you are in for a treat this evening. Um, if you don't know, my name is Catherine Harsha, and I have the honor of being the artistic director for programming at Encore Creativity. We are delighted to bring this artistic masterclass to you this evening in partnership, as always, with AARP, who help bring this incredible programming to you and to all of your friends across the country. So we're delighted that all of you have joined us this evening. And it is my honor to introduce the incredible Tom Teasley. You are going to get an incredible experience of international percussion with Tom. We were just talking a little bit about all of his experiences all across the world. And to top it off, he is friends and colleagues with someone that we all know, Gene Kelly. So, my friends, he has been, yes, many of you are nodding your heads.
My
How many of
greatest
you,
accomplishment.
greatest accomplishment, how many of you have already gotten to see Tom Teasley at work somewhere across the history of Encore? Any of you? Some of you? Yep, I see a couple of hands up there. Awesome. Yep, and Mary is saying yes, absolutely. So, friends, without any further ado, I want to introduce you to Tom Teasley.
Hello, everyone. I am so delighted to be here. Let me put some of my things down here so they will be there when I want them next. I always start off my program with something that I call warming the instruments. In the African tradition, when the musicians are traveling from village to village, they are not traveling with their own instruments, and so they do a first piece that is an improvisation that is that they call warming the instruments, and I love that because it's with the assumption that the musician is always ready to go. The only thing that needs warming are the instruments, and I've got a lot of instruments that I'm going to share with you. Just briefly, a little bit about my work is I'm a jazz musician that was trained at a music conservatory and spent a lot of time traveling around the world as a cultural envoy for the United States, and taking me to the Middle East and the Far East. And so what I have done is I've combined a lot of these instruments and the playing styles and the techniques with American jazz. If one thinks of American jazz originally as being a mixture of European harmony and melody with African rhythmic sensibility, which it certainly is. I use that as kind of the base of my gumbo, if you will. And then I start adding some elements from India that we're going to talk about, a lot of elements from the Middle East and from the Far East. And I hope that it becomes a representation of what actually I think is the best part of being an American, and that is the multiculturalness of it and how we are all richer as a result of all the people who come here and share their culture with us. So I started off, and as you also have seen, I'm taking some very ancient instruments and I'm combining that with some of the digital technology here that I'll talk a little bit about later. But I also cover a very wide span. So I am interested in instruments, historically that is. So I'm interested in instruments whose origins go back thousands of years with contemporary technology. I'm also interested in taking an instrument from one part of the world and use a playing technique from an entirely different part of the world. Through my travels, I discovered two things about, well, a lot of things actually, but two that specifically relate to the music, and that in my work is that there are rhythms that occur all over the world that have a different name. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go forward. But the basic reason for that is the rhythms feel good. If there is I'm always interested in the dance sensibility of music. And then there are only a certain amount of ways that a hand can efficiently move on a drum. And it really doesn't matter what the drum is. There are just the mechanics of the hand. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that now. This is an instrument from South India that's called a kanjara. Traditionally, it's made with the skin is from a monitor lizard, and this is a synthetic head, so no monitor lizards were damaged in this. And the traditional way of playing this is rather like you play the tabla. One would play the tabla drum. So it's called split hand. I rock back and forth between my index and these three fingers. Now there's a stroke that is used in South Italian tamburello playing, which an Indian player would never use, and I just call it the Italian flip stroke. It's used in the dance of the tarantella, if you've all have ever heard that. But I discovered that if I really relax my hand, I can play it like super fast, and it becomes like an ornament. So I'm going to play just a little bit of how this canjera works with a couple of the techniques, and then I'm going to further demonstrate how I bring that into my jazz world. So this is just a little, a little bit of a show-off demonstration on the canjera, using some traditional Indian strokes and some strokes from South Italy. So that is a brief introduction on how the instrument goes, and it would actually be fine if I kind of left it there. But that's not enough for me. I've got to find a way to, with all of the instruments and the rhythms that I do, I need to find a way to personalize it. So I'm going to just kind of briefly ask, if you guys are familiar with the drummer Max Roach, you can raise your hand, or if you're not, good. I'm glad to see that. Then you can, if you're not familiar, he's somebody I highly recommend you explore. He's one of my greatest influences. He was instrumental in developing the bebop vocabulary on the drum set, and towards the end of his life, he was playing with the break dancers in New York. He played with his daughter's string quartet. But among the other interesting things he did was he would go into and do a whole concert with a 4-piece drum kit, just like this. How could he do that? By the use. A lot of people would say that he was very melodic, and actually I thought he was, but he referred to what he did was he was a master of architecture. And so one of the pieces that he created was for one of his mentors, Big Sid Catlett. And the theme for that actually came from a Lester Young piece called Mop Mop. And he goes, bop, 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 boom, boom. So it's like, so that was a 32-bar solo based, an AABA form based on Mop Mop. So I thought, that's such a cool pattern to do on the drums, but is it possible to do that on this one little instrument, on the canjera? So now that you've heard it in its sort of original state, I'm going to let you experience it on the canjera, and we can see how close or not I come to this. Section. Solo. So that's something you probably won't hear. Maybe that's a good thing. I'm not sure. But Max Roach's solo Mop Mop for Big Sid on the South Indian Kanjara. Now, well, thank you. I see that. All right. Now, this is the tambourine from the Middle East called the rick. In English letters spelled R-I-Q-Q. Now, as I said, I spent a lot of time there and performing with like master performers of this. So one thing that is unique about this is, I'm going to hold it up close to the camera, so it has these jingles that are very large. And so unlike other tambourines, you actually play on the jingles themselves. So something like... And then they'll mix that in with the lower sound on the head and the higher sound. I think it's interesting always to... When I'm playing these for people who are not familiar with the instrument itself, to have a reference, let me see if I can find my sticks, to have a reference for the way that I might play that with on a traditional drum kit. So when I'm playing on those jingles, that's kind of like when I'm playing on the hi-hat. So now I'm going to play that one more time. But now that you've heard the Western version of the inspiration from that, maybe you'll hear the rick slightly different. Okay? I'm going to mix it with the drum kit. So that is the rick. Now we're going to get to the drum. That is one of my desert island drums. If I can manipulate that around. Here we go. So this is, as I said, if I were to, people are always saying, Tom, you've got so many drums. What's your favorite one? I'd say that one of my favorite drums is this drum, and this is called a frame drum. Is the generic term. Now, it's interesting to me that thousands and thousands of years ago, people all over the world were playing these frame drums without each knowing what the other were doing. In ancient Mesopotamia, it was called a daf, and they had very fascinating technique there where they snap their fingers. Since each finger has a different size and thus weight, it's kind of like my stick bag here where I have all different sizes of brushes and sticks, but everything is different. And when the fingers are repelling off the thumb, it's giving like a different kind of articulation. Sometimes I'll play it without doing that as well. So that's the traditional ancient Mesopotamian style. And I guess it was about 10, 12 years ago. I was in Iraq. I was all up and down Iraq, starting at Erbil and left from Basra and spent a lot of time in Baghdad. But I played with musicians who had been, their family, this had been like the family business since the beginning of time, So what an honor for me to be able to drop into that culture, and then to be able to share that with you all. So that's the ancient Mesopotamian, but as you're probably figuring, that I'm not going to stop there. So you already saw the Indian style, the split hand style. So I'm going to play that. So that's from India. And then guess what? I'm going to use the Italian stroke. And I'm going to be changing the pitch, but instead of with the canjera, where I'm changing it from the bottom of the head, I'm going to be changing it from the top. And it's almost, what I'm hearing is like a Neil Peart from Rush, kind of like where he's down a bunch of tom-tom. So this is a relatively short solo. On the frame drum, that I'm using all of these different kind of techniques, and maybe you'll even hear a whale call. This is a stroke I borrowed from flamenco guitar playing. That with a phrase that is used in Indian music. It's called the T-high, and I specifically put that into play as part of a rhythmic reduction. I'm not going to do a long haul on that, but just so that you know now that there is such thing as a T-high and reduction. So the reduction works like this. Takadimi takadimi takita takadimi takadimi takita takadimi takadimi taka takadimi takadimi taka takadimi takadimi taka 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 doom taka 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 doom taka 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 doom. So that last part of it is the T-high, where it's a 3-note phrase where the last note of the phrase serves a dual purpose. It's the end of the phrase, but it's also the big one. And it's kind of confusing because the second repetition of the phrase starts on the offbeat. Taka 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 doom, taka 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 doom, taka 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 doom. So we're gonna learn a little bit of that as we go on. I've been playing an awful lot, and I'm thinking that I wanted to have an opportunity for you guys to interact. Is that cool? You guys into that? Cool. All right. Good. All right. So we're going to use that was kind of a better segue than I usually do because I never plan anything. But we're going to learn some syllables. Okay. So I'd like to for you to repeat after me. Ta ga di mi.
Takadimiti.
Yeah. And then, so that is going to be a 4-note. And then we've got ta, ki, ta is a 3-note. And then we've got ta, ka, which is a 1. and then doom. So I'm kind of lumping. I'm not getting into a lot of the pitch variations that they do in India. So we've got a low note, and basically all the rest are high notes. So don't worry about if something's a 4 or 3 or 2. I just want you to know that's the way it's going to work. What I want you to do is we're going to start off with some call and response. So this is going to be very much like you are a child learning a language, okay? So all you got to do is listen and respond. I'm going to give us a pulse here. And we're going to see how complicated we can get. But it won't get that complicated. 1, 2, here I go. Ta, 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 ta. Taka ta, taka doom. Taka 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 doom. Taka dimi taka taka doom. Taka dimi taka taka doom. Ta ta taka ta doom. Taka ta taka ta ta doom. Taka dimi taka ta ta taka doom. Taka di da ta taka doom. Ta ta taka taka doom. Doom ta ta doom ta. Doom ta ta doom ta. Doom doom ta doom ta. Doom doom ta doom ta. Doom ta ta doom ta ta doom ta ta doom doom ta. Okay, and the process. How did we do with that? We everybody, did you hang in there? Cool.
Yeah.
You're on the honor system. I can't hear you, but in the process of this experiment, you have learned 3 traditional Middle Eastern dance rhythms. And I promise you, if you go into a Middle Eastern restaurant, you're going to hear these rhythms. So the one that goes doom ta ta doom ta is called maksum, and the one that goes doom doom ta is called belody, and the one that goes doom ta ta doom ta ta doom ta ta doom doom ta is called malfouf. So it's interesting. There are, and if I were to go to a different part of the world, especially with malfouf, in Brazil that could be called a bayun. In Africa, it'd have a different name yet. So the same rhythm has that because it's just doom ta ta doom ta ta doom ta. That grouping of 3 plus 3 plus 2, it just makes the body wanna do something. I with all of my music, I reference that I always want it to have the JBF. Do you guys know what the JBF is? The James Brown factor. So if it doesn't have the James Brown factor, I mean, I can appreciate it, but I'm probably not that into it. So what I'm going to do now is give us an opportunity to, I'm going to set up a maksum rhythm on the looper here, and I'm going to play some traditional kind of patterns, and I'm going to recite the vocalization, the solkatu, if you will, and then I want you to do that too. So what I'm trying to do is, even though this is virtual, I want to create an experience where we're communicating, we're doing something together, we're sharing the music, but really more importantly, we're sharing this energy that I have. The rhythm is something that is too good to keep to yourself. It's like when you go and to a place and like people are dancing and there's this ecstatic thing. That's what I'm always looking for. That's where I live. That's where I want to live anyway. So guess what? I've got kind of a virtual version of the frame drum. Now that you've heard the frame drum. This is where when I'm in school I go. Now, what rhythm was that? Was that the maksum or the belody? It was the maksum. Okay, good for you. You got it. So I'm going to go ahead and set it up. So this is your part. You can say that while you're doing it. If you want to like dance, you know, do your thing. Feel the rhythm. So now that you know the Rick, you're going to hear it with the Rick. I see somebody in there that's really into it. Okay. Now let's hear some Middle Eastern scale. I'm going to stop the loop. Let's see if you can keep going. Ta, doom, ta, ta, doom, 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 ta, ta. All right, great. I could just feel that you guys were right there. You were yeah. I see those things going up. So you're right in the pocket. Okay, I'm gonna play a little bit more, and then I don't want this just to be me talking and asking you to do stuff. So I see that there are some things in the chat. So I'm gonna throw a few more things at you, and then we can have a conversation. I can go on forever, as you probably have gathered. So but I want you guys to make sure that you feel fully engaged. The other instrument that I'm going to talk about here is the darbuka. Are you guys familiar with that? So again, in the Middle East, everybody plays this. You know, I was in the West Bank one time during Ramadan, and this is a pretty cool story. And I was asked to put together a drumming collaboration with Israeli and Palestinian musicians. Guess what? They all got along great. The only joke at the rehearsals was who had the best hummus. That's still under debate, so I'm not sure that was ever settled. But it's one of these things where people there, everybody plays the instrument. You know, there's always one in somebody's house, and I mean they like really play it. So it's. Traditionally, it's a lot of like the low sound, the high sounds. This is where my finger is snapping off my thumb in a different way, like that. I can't really see it the way it's hitting, but it's like that kind of a thing. And then, not surprisingly, I'm going to use like the Italian stroke. I'll use the flamenco stroke. This is a stroke that comes from Persian drumming, tombak playing. the point is, once I learn this movement, it's like, why restrict it to the original drum that it was shown to me on? I want to play it on everything, and I want to share the wealth. So I'm going to use this as an opportunity to get into another Indian concept that we have. And then I'm going to do a solo on that takes that to another degree. But in the Indian concept of rhythm, they do not necessarily think in terms of time signatures. They think in terms of time cycles. And these time cycles can occur at various rates of speed. So it's kind of like, in quotations, kind of like quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes. But it gets interesting when the cycle itself is not an even number, that it's an odd number. So because then when you go to the next speed, excuse me while I switch something. When you go to the next speed, it's going to be starting on what would be the offbeat 8th note or the offbeat 16th note. So guess what? We're gonna learn this. This is a 3-beat cycle, and I'm gonna try and set up the first speed, and it'll go like this: ta ki ta 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 ta ki ta. You do that with me? Ta ki ta ta ki ta. Everybody, I think, can do that. Ta, ta, ki, ta. Now, I'm going to do that same thing, but I'm going to do it twice as fast. Ta, ki, ta. Those of you who can grab that, you can go to the second speed. Ta, ki, ta. Ta, ki, ta, 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 ta, ki, ta. Ta, ki, ta. Hear them going at the same time? So it's basically like having 3/4 and then 3/8. So guess what? We're going to go to the third speed now. Who here can do the first speed? Who can do the second speed? I'll get you going. Want to try the third? So when I do stuff like this, it takes me to, and that's one of the things that kind of keeps me going after 6 decades of doing this, is it takes me to a different place, mentally, spiritually, because the rhythms, there's an intellectual thing that's happening, but there's also a physiological thing that's happening. When these rhythms, if you're doing it, then it happens at a different level. But if you're just receiving it and you allow it, it does something to you. It does something to you on a different level. So it could also be, 3-beat is kind of interesting. It could also be a 5-beat. So in that, I won't do everything with the loop, but ta na gi na tom, 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 ta na gi na na, ta na gi na tom, 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 ta na gi na tom. So I'm going to do this one last show off thing, and then I think we're going to take a break, and I'm going to get some questions because I'm seeing some questions coming in. So I'm going to put this microphone down and switch. I when I'm working with a compositional idea, I take a germ, like a teeny bit of a germ, like this bit that I've taken from Indian music is, trust me, it's like taking it's taking a punctuation mark basically, and but it's enough if you take the punctuation mark and then you mix it with some of your own vocabulary. So I'm going to cycle back now to the darbuka. You thought I'd forgotten about you, didn't you? Okay, so if you take 12 beat cycle, so in our culture we have a tendency to think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Very, very symmetrical, like 4 equal groupings of 3. But it doesn't have to be that way, right? It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm getting that odd number that I seek, so that when I go to the second speed, it's starting on the next upbeat. So this is kind of a tricky thing. So wish me luck. I usually do this after a couple of espressos, but I can't have the espresso this late at night. Okay, so we've got so it's going to be ta ka di mi ta ki ta na gi na tom ta ga di mi ta ki ta na gi na tom ta ga di mi ta ki ta na gi na ta ga di mi ta ki ta na gi na tom ta ga di mi ta ki ta na gi na tom ta ga di mi ta ki ta na gi na tom ta ga di mi ta ki ta na gi na tom ta ga di mi ta ki ta na gi na tom ta ga di mi ta ki ta na tom Okay, so I'm out of breath a little bit and thinking I need to take maybe a little bit of a break. So I'd like to get to some questions. I see some questions in the chat, so let me see. Oh, thank you. That was wonderful. Okay. Darbuka versus Dumbuck. The Darbuka versus the Dumbek. It kind of depends what culture you're coming from. Actually, this is referenced as the Egyptian style because it's got this kind of rounded curve. So traditionally, if you're being more specific, this would probably be the darbuka. There is a Turkish version where I don't have one with me right now, but the rim is more of a it's more flat, like the frame drum. So and that style, they actually do a lot of the finger snapping on this drum. With this, you can't really do it because the rim is kind of far away from the edge of the head. So it's not really made for that. It does a lot of different things instead. I have a tendency just to like this because where I was touring, people were playing this, and it seems to blend well when I'm using with the drum set. Okay, what is the red keyboard? So let me talk a little bit about that. The red keyboard. This is called the melodica, and I have become kind of a melodica nerd. You know, I have a bass melodica, and this would be an alto melodica. There is a soprano melodica, and I even have like a four octave melodica with that kind of covers the thing, and an electric melodica. But essentially, as you see, it's a keyboard. But what is interesting about it is that the sound is not made by striking a if I'm not blowing into it, I don't get anything. So it comes from my breath. I find this instrument especially compelling for a couple of reasons, for many reasons actually. Not the least of which is it's very easy to transport. And so when I'm flying all over the world and I'm carrying lots of drums, it's nice to have a melodic instrument that is portable. But aesthetically, I think that since I've been playing the melodica, my approach to drumming is very different, because when you're drumming, whether or not I'm striking with my hands or a stick, an implement, I'm always striking something. So this kind of nuance being able to shape a line, being singers, of course, you're doing this all the time. Being able to shape a melodic line with my breath has had a big impact. And so when I'm drumming, if you can imagine, I'm taking that kind of thing and so I feel like playing the melodica has really given me a kind of sensitivity to playing the drums that I seek as I keep celebrating birthdays. I've become a little less intrigued or impressed or whatever with like all the fast stuff that if you go onto like Instagram and you see the drummers. I appreciate it and I think it's great, but I'm finding that as I continue to play more and more, and maybe this would be a fun thing to do later in the program, I become more and more interested in the silence between the notes, and in fact, getting back to Max Roach, that leads me to something that happened to me when I was going to school at Peabody. And it was in the fall, and Max Roach was going to be doing a program at the Smithsonian, and so of course I had to go there. So I'm there, I'm sitting in the front row, and he's doing his solo thing, and so he was nice enough to speak with me, and I said, Mr. Roach, you're just such a huge influence, and all of the melodic things that you do in your solo percussion. And he stopped me. I didn't even get to solo. And he goes, I never play a solo. I only play duets with silence. So here I'm 19 years old, and I said, okay, let me go home and think about that for 30 years. But I'm starting to now actually understand that, and it's that silence between the notes that makes the next note important, right? Because if it's just there's so much music, it's just, well, I think this, the grass is green, and how did the football team do? And it's just kind of like a long running amount of notes that do not necessarily correspond to one to the other. And when you give it time to settle, it allows the next note or the next word to breathe and have meaning. That was kind of deep for me. Okay. Can you show us some moves in slow motion for us to try? Yeah, let's do that. So if you have something that you are, you can even just do on your thighs or a table or something like that. But let's I know what we'll do. Let's take the same concept. This is the way, because I do drumming workshops sometimes, and we've already done the first thing where we do some of the call and response. So we're going to take that to the next step now. So I'm going to use the syllables, and I'm going to tap. I'm not even going to tap on a drum. I'm just going to tap on my thighs here. And you can do the same thing. And then later on, I'll show you some other strokes. Okay. So here we go. Ta, ga, di, mi. Ta, ga, ta, ga, da. Takadimi, takadimi, taka, da. Ta, ta, taka, doom. Okay, so we got to doom. Now there's a couple of different ways that we could make doom. So if I was on the frame drum, it would be ta, 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 doom. So that is in slow motion. I'm making that with my thumb. On a djembe or a conga drum, I'd make it with a flat hand. But I think for our purposes, that would actually work pretty well if when we go and we say the word doom, we do thumb. Ta, 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 ga, doom. Can you see that? Can you see that well enough on my thumb? Yes. Ta, 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 ga, doom. Doom. Doom, ta, doom, doom, ta, ta, ta. Oh, I know, this might help. When I'm making the doom stroke, it is as though I'm turning a doorknob, and I'm just extending my thumb out. So it's that motion. Ta, 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 ga, doom, ta, 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 ga, doom, doom. Doom, 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 takadimi ta. Doom, ta ta ta. So that was another stroke. Now another stroke you guys could do at home, and this is one that I use a lot. If I'm playing a conga drum or a djembe drum, or these drums that I largely lump into a category called palm drums. And I rock back and forth on my heel and then come back to my fingertips. I think you can see that pretty well. So it's like... So it's like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and change hands. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and now. Okay, I'm going to take it kind of the next level. So this might be more than you grasp, and also I just want to make sure that I get to this. After the program is over, if I have not gotten to every question or something comes up, feel free to contact me. Okay. So there is a stroke that we're going to learn. It's called tumbao, and you probably heard it go. So whatever your non-dominant hand is, I want you to go heel tip and then stop. So 1, 2, ready, go. Heel tip, heel tip, heel tip. In my case, left, 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 left. And then the next stroke is going to be heel tip slapped. So I'm coming down with my right hand kind of hard. You know, you're not going to get a slap sound, but just know that it's an accent. Left, left, right. Left, left, right. Left, left, right. And then the next one's a little tricky. It's going to go heel, tip, right, left. But that next left is another tip. So it's heel, tip, slap, tip. The reason for that is your heel is always on the downbeat. Heel, tip, slap, tip. Heel, tip, slap, tip. Heel, tip, slap, tip. And then we've got one more. Heel, tip, slap, tip, heel, tip. heel tip, slap tip, heel tip, and then we're almost home. Heel tip, slap tip, heel tip, slap tip, heel tip, open, heel tip, slap tip, heel tip, open, heel tip, slap tip, heel tip, open, heel tip, slap tip, heel tip, open. So at that tempo, that's kind of a slower tempo, so that would be like bolero. A little faster, it would be San Mantuno. And then faster yet would be mambo. I'm going to show you one more. So this is a stroke, and it uses some of the things we already learned. This is a stroke that is used in Brazilian drumming on an instrument called the pandeiro. So we're going to make our thumb stroke that now we're an expert on. So we go doom. I'll do it here so you can see a little better. And then we're going to go doom tip, doom tip. Then we got doom tip, heel tip. And that's it. Boom, tip, heel. So if I do it here. Sounds kind of Brazilian already, right? Now, if you're somebody like me who has too much time on their hands and not enough good ways to spend it, I've come up with a way where I can play the tumbao with my left hand, do it all with one hand. And then I play the the Brazilian pandeiro on the other hand. And then with my voice, I'll cycle a group of three. Doom, ta, doom, ta, doom, ta, doom, ta, doom, ta, doom. Or maybe a group of five. Doom, taki, doom, taki, doom, taki, doom. Or doom, 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 doom. Now there's a pattern that maybe if I come back we'll learn this, but it's a whole series from Jose Gramani. An exercise, but I'm gonna go through it. 1, 2, 1, 2. Here. Do da do da da do da ki da do da da de me do do da do do da do 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 da do 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 da do 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 da ki da do 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 da da de me do do da do da do da ki da do da da de me do 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 do. We'll get to that the next time. But I just want you to show that really you don't need so much, right? You know, you can get so much done with just one instrument, just your hands, you know, just your voice. So could you please review some of the strokes slow? Do you guys feel like I did that enough? Do you want more of the strokes slow? Give me a yes if you want more. More slow? So let me give you this one, because this one I didn't really slow down. So this Italian stroke, it's 3 strokes that come from essentially one movement. So it's my thumb, the side of the index finger, and then back around here. So it's 1, 2, 3. So when it gets to that fast stage, it's not like I'm doing anything muscular. It's only about relaxation. There's no way that you can make your muscles go that fast. It's just kind of letting your hands spaz out and controlling the rate of speed of which that it strikes the drum. So let me see what else. Have you ever performed? Oh, merdongum. Yeah, I know the merdongum. Yes. Let me tell you about the merdongum. So one time, how I kind of got into this world percussion stuff initially was I was doing a lot of freelancing. I'd just gotten out of the Navy band, and I was taking every gig that came, jazz groups, symphony orchestras, weddings, whatever. But I went to Canada to do this percussion intensive, and Trishay Shankaran was teaching there. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's one of the premier artists on the mridangam. And so I had gotten a mridangam. I knew nothing about the mridangam. And so, all the way to, it's like on the west coast of Canada. So I'm lugging, it's made out of jackwood. It's really heavy. So I'm carrying the mridangam, all through the airports, my back hurts, I get there. And so finally, I get to the, I take the train. I think I flew to Seattle and then took the ferry, into Canada. And then, and so here I am. And I put the mridangam down at the feet of the maestro, and I go, I didn't know what exactly I said, but it was, all right, dude, let's jam or something, And so this kind of brings us back to where we were with the vocalization. So he goes, oh, you can set your drum aside, but I want you to do this. And he went on, and it lasted like a minute, And he said, okay, now you do that back to me. And I got like 2 syllables or something, and then he said, you can put your mridangam back over in the corner, and for the next 2 weeks all we're going to do is solkatu. It was the best lesson that I ever had for rhythm, because if you can vocalize something, then putting it to your hands is actually the pretty easy thing. Okay, and then so the individual fingers. So is that you're interested in seeing like how that works? So when I'm doing the snap, it's the pinky is repelling off the thumb, then the index, then the middle, and then pinky, ring finger, index, and then that one. So listen to it really slow. And then there's this stroke that I said I borrowed from flamenco guitar playing, but actually the reality is I was an ADHD student in school. So when the teacher was trying to talk about sentence structure, I was just doing that on my desk. So it was like one of those things I just as soon as I had a drum, I could do it on the drum. But it sounds cool, and flamenco guitarists do that. But if I started off saying that I just got it from being a poor student in school. When you're vocalizing, is it important to speak the exact syllable, and you can then make it up? So you can't. I mean, you can just make it up, but it's good to have some structure, and so in the real world practice, the specific syllables actually correspond to a very different sound. So, on the tabla drums, there's 20, 30 different sounds. So it's not just the rhythms. However, if you keep in mind that taka-dimi for 4, takita for 3, taka for 2, and ta for 1, it's very, very powerful. So because then you can kind of, when you say can you make it up, that's exactly what I do. So takadimi takadimi takita takadimi takadimi takita takadimi 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 taka takadimi takadimi taka takadimi tak takatika takatika doom takatika takatika doom takatika takatika doom ta di mi ta ga jo do ta ga di ta. Now I'm going to do groups of 3 5 repetitions. Takita 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 ta ta ga di mi ta ga. Now I'm going to do 2 groups of 5 and a group of 6. Ta na get na to ta na get na to takita takita ta na get na to ta na get na to takita ta when I kind of go off into that to the netherworld of these additive phrases, I don't want to get lost. I mean, because when I'm doing this, my imagination. I've got the world's worst sense of direction, but if I had a sense of direction, it would be as though I know where I'm going, and then I'm deciding, like, I see my North Star someplace, and in this case, the North Star is ta, ga, di, mi, ta, ga, jo, nu, ta, ga, di, mi, ta. The detour is ta, kita, ta, kita, ta, kita, ta, kita, ta, kita, ta, ta, ga, di, mi, ta, ga, jo, nu, ta, ga, di, mi, ta, or jo, nu, ta, na, get, na, do, ta, na, get, na, do, ta, kita, ta, na, get, na, do, ta, na, get, na, do, ta, kita, ta, ga, di. So if you can't find your way back, especially if you're playing with other people, then you kind of get, you haven't. You've what they would refer to as you've lost tal. So I do play sometimes with Indian musicians, but these are only Indian musicians that are, I mean, they're masters, but they are interested in collaborating. They're interested in East-West things. So I would never, this stage of my life, go on to like a classical concert with classical Indian musicians. So I know enough about that to kind of weave it into the vocabulary. But those guys and ladies are very interested in. And the other thing, they're interested in the JBF. They're interested in the James Brown factor, which is not necessarily a part of the Indian thing. There's extreme rhythmic complexity, but there's not a lot of mojo. There's not a lot of that. Those things that are kind of in between the eighth note and the triplet. So, and by the way, I didn't really talk much about African music. I hope this is okay. I just am kind of like a stream of consciousness. I never know what I'm going to do until I say something before and that triggers something. But we did a fair amount of the Indian and the Arabic. But what is different with the African concept is that if you think of Indian rhythm as being very linear, very complex, but always linear, African is... I like to think of it as almost harmonica. You can't really see this instrument that I'm playing on. This is me. Can't really see it, but I'm sitting on a wooden box drum called a cajon. So I'm going to play a pattern there that they call. It found its way to South America and Cuba. It's called bimbe, but it's a traditional African bell pattern, and it's. So it's a 12/8, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So the first step would be. So I'm playing all the downbeats with my left hand, but now I'm going to play the second partial. Now I'm going to play the third partial. So it could also be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. This part stayed the same. I changed the melody of it a little bit, but the rhythm stayed the same. The only perception that is different is that I changed the perception of a duple from 2 to then 3. That's kind of a deep dive. But the important thing is that the African rhythm is harmonic and that has a duality, and that it can be grasped from a perspective of either 3 or 4. So, have you ever? Oh wow! Do you have printable instruction sheet covering the core fundamentals of frame drumming? I do have some things. I have a book DVD that was published by Alfred that's called An American Approach to World Percussion. But if you're interested in some of most of my handout stuff is actually a little bit less about the specifics of the techniques of the drumming. That's something that I usually pass on. But since you asked, I am working on an online course that I intend to complete this summer. But I do have lots of PDFs of my rhythmic concepts. So and I'd be happy to share that with you. So how long do we have?
We have another 15 minutes.
Okay, cool. Okay, because I just wanted to kind of do some stuff, and I have a special thing that I want to do. I thought it was 9, but so I'd be happy to share some of my printable PDFs, and then if you go to my YouTube channel, you can see a lot of video of me performing. And I don't know if you guys are into Substack, but I just recently started writing for Substack, not really to promote anything. I did it largely to help myself define what it is that I'm doing. So if you'd like to if you all are Substack readers, you can go to my Substack and just look. I have something that is called The Rhythmist. That was kind of like it's sort of my manifesto, and then I have two that I'm working on for my State Department travels that are going to be long ones. But I have several videos that are videos. I have a new record out called Interplay that's a duo with a trumpet player, amazing Dave Ballou, and so I talk about some of the specific ideas. Like one of the things was playing the frame drum, but combining foot patterns, and then how that reflects, like in nature, he was doing like elephant calls and things like that, and a lot of the work with the hand pan that I'm gonna do later. Printable instruction. Can you do some Can you do some African? Well, I did the African thing, so I did the African bembe. But let me do this. Let me do some like kind of calypso. Indian stroke on the tom-tom. Persian stroke on the snare drum. was kind of a version of the master saxophonist who left us recently, Sonny Rollins. But that was a solo based on his theme of St. Thomas. So how did that kind of work? Okay, I have a way that I kind of like to close this out. But before that, are there any questions or anything that I didn't get to? And remember, you're welcome to contact me, because as you have probably discerned, I'm pretty passionate about this stuff, and I could go on for a long time. Well, so I have this career as a performing artist. I have a career. I spent a lot of time, working as with what music can do culturally as a cultural envoy, and I spent a lot of time doing theater. And from the theater, that led to the movie soundtracks that I do. So we were talking about. I have a series of Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin movies that are recorded with my soundtrack and my performance embedded into the film that I'd be happy to share at some point. And then there is the avant-garde Dadaist art. So I've taken a lot of art by Hans Richter, Viking Egling, Man Ray, and superimposed a soundtrack along with the images of my performing. So it's kind of a merging of styles. But one of the other elements that has become very dear to my heart is sound healing. So I have spent a fair amount of time working with psychotherapists doing sound design for guided meditation. And then I also do that for, it's become a standalone thing. I don't know if we have any people in the DC area, but this Sunday I'm going to be doing one at Radiance Yoga. And it's starting to become a bigger and bigger part of my aesthetic of where I'm headed. So I've been liking to close out my programs with something like this. So I'm going to give you a taste of how that works. And I'm going to use this instrument here. It's a hand pan. So I play that with a technique that's not unlike you're going to see the thumb strokes. The technique that I use to get the sounds out is very similar to the way that I play a frame drum. And then I'm going to play also with the cajon sometimes. So I'm going to invite you now just to kind of close your eyes and just imagine, we've shared a lot today, and I'm grateful for it. And this is a crazy time we're living in, right? But there's always a time to find gratitude for what's happening in our life. And so I'm going to close this piece, and I think I'm going to call it Gratitude. Okay.
Yay! Woo, 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 woo!
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. As I said, feel free to stay in touch with me. If you would like to go to my website, you can sign up for my newsletter. I promise you, I'm not organized enough to spam you, so I maybe send something out every 6 weeks or something. But it has a little bit of my new work that I'm putting out, and then if you want to go to my Substack, that's where I'm kind of following through with some of my philosophies on what I'm doing and why I think sound and music is so important in this day. And if I have a new record out that you're welcome to purchase or stream, however it is that you consume your music. But it's been a great honor to be able to share this time with you, and I hope that you've got something out of it. Any more with my music, I want less to entertain people and more to change you just for a little bit, so because it changes me just for the experience. But thank you so much.
Friends, thank you so much for joining us. And can we all join together? You can press your space bar and unmute if you'd like to, and say a huge thank you to Tom Teasley. And you can throw in a Takadimi if you'd like to.
Thank you.
Tom.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What
Thank
a
you.
wonderful session. Thank you so much, Tom. And thanks again to AARP and Encore Creativity for putting these sessions on. It has been a joy this evening. Thank you all so much for joining us, and have a wonderful night.
You all have a great night, and give my best to Gene Kelly when you see. All right.
Absolutely,
Take care.
will
y'all.
do.
Peace. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.